Good evening. Yeah, it's very nice to be able to be with you all tonight and to participate in this year's Thanksgiving retreat. I was reflecting on the last time that I was able to come to a Thanksgiving retreat in person, and it's been almost about 12 years ago now. At that time I was an Anagarika in white before having ordained as a monk, so it's been quite a long time, and it's just quite nice to be able to come and participate in this retreat. So many people here who have been coming for many years and are still interested to practice meditation, to learn how to make the mind peaceful. And looking around the room, there's all different ages of people, and people who have come from, probably many different places. You have lay people and monks. So many different experiences. I imagine that some people are probably still very new to the practice of meditation, and other people have probably been meditating for many years now. So coming to sit a retreat like this for a week, then and certainly the experiences that we'll have will be very different, depending on where we are on our own practice. And some people may have experienced a lot of happiness, over the past few days in their meditation. Other people maybe have just experienced a little bit of happiness, and maybe many people have experienced no happiness at all. And these are all just totally ordinary parts of the practice, and it really just very much depends on how long we've been doing it. How long we've been putting forth the causes and conditions. And I imagine that for most people, coming to sit a retreat like this, then our experience will tend to be probably mostly dealing with unpleasant states of mind, and maybe experiencing very little or maybe no happiness at all. And oftentimes that's very frustrating, but it's just a very, very ordinary part of the practice. And for most of us, that's where we have to start. We have to start with learning how to work with all of the negative states of mind that block us from being happy. So there's this a simile that I like very much. Great example of the practice of meditation, and it's like being on a train, and the train is traveling south at full speed, and after having traveled for a long time in that direction, then you decide suddenly you'd like to change course. You'd like to go north, and you tell the driver, "Stop! We're going the wrong direction. I want to go north." And so the first thing that the driver would do would be to apply the brakes, and the train would slowly start to lose some of its speed, but it would still be traveling south. And so you would say to the driver, what are you doing? I want to go north. I told you to go north. And the driver would say, yes, but in order to go north, in order to change direction, there's a process that we have to go through in order to do that. And the first step is just slowing the train down. There's so much momentum that the train has built up that it's just impossible, physically impossible for the train to completely switch directions and travel north. And that's, it's a great simile for our spiritual practice, because we live for so many years in the world before probably ever knowing anything about meditation, before coming to this practice. And the way of the world, the path of the world is a path of following our emotions and following our moods, allowing the mind to do whatever it would like to do throughout the day, and trying to find things that we like, that we enjoy, and trying to get away from things that we don't like. So this is very much the way of the world, and it's like, it's like traveling in a particular direction, full speed, and having lived that way, for many years, then we have created such an incredible momentum in the mind, the momentum of greed, hatred, and delusion, the momentum of mindlessness. And the way of Dhamma practice and the way of meditation and finding happiness within ourselves is like traveling in the complete opposite direction. It's a happiness that only appears once we go against those habits of mind, once we learn how to overcome those negative emotions. And having followed our negative moods for so long, and having not cultivated mindfulness for so long, then our defilements, our negative habits of mind, they have incredible momentum behind them, and we may have the aspiration, the intention that we would like to just completely overcome them, and we would like to give up our old ways and just live a life of peace and happiness. But there's a whole process that we have to go through in order to get to the place where we want to be, in order to find the happiness that we want to find in meditation. There's a whole process that we have to go through. And in the same way that changing the course of the train, it begins by just applying the brakes and learning how to slow down the momentum of the train. And in the beginning, even though you want to travel north and go to a destination that's somewhere north, you still seem to be heading in the wrong direction. But the speed is slowing down, and very much when we first come to the practice of meditation, then we're looking for peace and happiness, but we tend to just run into extreme suffering, desire, anger, fear, these things. We can spend a whole meditation retreat just cycling through these different mind states, of boredom and depression and longing and irritation and anxiety, thoughts of the past and thoughts of the future. It's possible to spend many weeks and months and even years in the practice just dealing with these things, and it can be very frustrating because it seems like we're still headed in the wrong direction. But in the beginning, our practice is like learning just how to slow down the momentum of the mind. If we put forth a lot of effort in studying, learning, how do we slow down these negative habits of the mind, over time, then we'll start to see that they are decreasing, they're losing their power over us, and eventually we start to have the experience of starting to be able to taste, real ease or real happiness in meditation, real peace. In the beginning, it may be something that we have only in very small amounts. The mind kind of bounces back and forth, or we come to a place maybe where we're able to sometimes travel in the other direction, but we also still kind of regress. If we really continue to put forth these the correct causes and conditions, eventually, we will start to come to a place where we are experiencing consistent peace and happiness in a meditation. And at that point, it's like, in the same way that when the train finally reverses course and is able to start traveling north, then at that point it becomes not about slowing down the momentum of the direction south. It becomes about learning how to increase one's speed north. So if we come to a place where we start to consistently experience happiness in meditation, then it's like our practice becomes learning how to increase that peace, and learning how to increase that happiness. And for most of us, we probably are still, spending a lot of our time in meditation working with negative states of mind, and so that's really where we have to begin. And in our practice, we really heavily emphasize mindfulness of the body and mindfulness of breathing. And the reason is because all of these negative states of mind, they're all experienced in the body, and they're all experienced as feelings, happiness and suffering, the things that we feel, and desire and anger and fear. These are all things that we feel in the body, and also that we can work with in the body. So that's the whole point of mindfulness of breathing and mindfulness of the body, is learning how to pay attention to the breath, learning how to pay attention to the posture of the body in a way that is actually affecting our emotions. And I've often thought that I can remember as a child being told that if you're angry, before you say anything, that you should take like 5 deep breaths. And I think that this is probably something that's commonly taught to children, and it's it's a great example of mindfulness of breathing. It's something that everyone kind of intuitively knows, that the breath can be used in this way to actually calm ourselves down, to actually change our emotions. But I think that most people in the world, they just don't really cultivate it. And it's something that if people don't really have much experience with it, might not really have much of an effect. If the anger is very strong or the emotions are very strong, taking deep breaths, it might relax us a little bit, but the emotion just seems to come right back. So people in the world probably don't really cultivate this very much. But for us, it's something that we can consistently develop and cultivate it, and then it will grow in strength. The tendency to be able to calm ourselves when the mind is becoming agitated is something that the breath can be used to create a habit, like reversing the habit of mindlessness and just allowing our minds to become overwhelmed by our emotions, which is the habit of the world, the habit we've been following for a very long time. The anger or desire or fear, the habit is just to be completely shaken and overwhelmed by it. And being overwhelmed by it, then it just tends to spin out of control and increase in power. And over time, those tendencies they get stronger. So if we always get angry and we're quick to respond with anger, then over time we're more likely to get angry. Our anger grows. This is all really well understood in modern psychology, but it's it's right there in the teachings of the Buddha, and it's something that we can see for ourselves. We know that getting lost in our emotions actually increases their power over us. So the practice of mindfulness and mindfulness of breathing is learning how to pay attention to the breath and the body, the feelings in the body, the posture of the body, instead of getting lost in our thoughts, and instead of becoming completely overwhelmed by by the pain of the particular emotion, how to direct our attention to our breathing, or the sensations, other sensations in the posture of the body, to kind of push back against the tendency of the mind to be shaken and to be overwhelmed by these things. So this is something that we're practicing, when we sit in meditation, but it's also something that we practice all of the time, developing mindfulness in all postures, whether we're standing or we're walking, lying down. Oftentimes we use a meditation word like Buddho, reciting this throughout the day, and this allows us to develop a consistent habit of mindfulness, and helps us to start to change the course of the mind from being overwhelmed and being pulled into our thinking and our emotions, to starting to be more and more present, being able to be at ease in the midst of things that normally we can't be at ease in. And you start to find that if we can use the breath, the breath has a very softening quality to it, so it's able to calm ourselves down, if we're feeling agitated. We can also use the opposite, sensations in the body, which are more solid. When we're walking, the sensations of the feet, or even sitting, we can sit up very straight, and we can create this feeling of solidity and strength in the body. This can create energy, and this can also push back against the states of mind that drag us down into low energy states, boredom and depression. So using these different tools, the breath and the sensations in the body, then we're learning how to be present with all of the emotions and all of the thoughts that are arising. We learn that through attending in different ways to the body, paying attention to the breath or other sensations in the body, we can start to weaken the momentum of our habitual reactions to our emotions. The habit of getting lost in thoughts of the past or the future, the habits of being overwhelmed by desire, anger, and fear. Using the breath and the sensations in the body, we can more and more start to be present with them. And I've heard Luang Por Pasano say many times that the practice is learning how to be present with things. And I remember in the beginning, hearing him say that, and I kind of didn't really know if it was true. I kind of disagreed with it sometimes. It didn't really sound like, learning how to be present with things. It doesn't really sound very spectacular. You're kind of looking for, states of great happiness and bliss and in meditation, and we kind of want to get rid of our problems. We want to overcome all of our weaknesses and experience great happiness. We don't want to have to be present with unpleasant things. But the more that I've practiced, and I think the more that everyone practices, more we'll see that this is the practice of meditation. The place of happiness in meditation. It's found through learning how to be present with painful emotions. Learning how to be present with the things we don't want to be present with, but learning how to be present with them in a way in which we're no longer shaken by them, we're no longer overwhelmed by them. And this is, something that's a process. In the beginning, we can't just be unshaken by our emotions. It's basically impossible because of the incredible momentum that our negative habits have. So it's kind of like wearing away those habits, learning how to be less shaken, learning how to be less moved. Can we be kind of all right with a particular emotion? Can we just be a bit less overwhelmed by it? And in the beginning, that seems kind of not really where we want to be. It's not very spectacular. We might be sitting with, incredible boredom or incredible irritation or desire and wanting to get rid of that and wanting to experience very peaceful states of mind. But, the practice is, can we be present in the midst of that painful emotion? Can we be present kind of like in the midst of a storm? In the beginning, we are still very much affected by our emotions, but over time, if we continue to apply these techniques, so working with the breath and working with sensations in the body, we can start to see that we are able to be present with the things that we don't want to be present with. We're able to be less and less moved by them. There is the potential for incredible power in the mindfulness of the body. We can wear away our habitual reactions, and eventually we can completely overcome our reactions. The path of learning how to be present with our emotions in a balanced way, it's something that eventually leads us beyond our emotions, and it leads us beyond our negative habits of mind. Our defilements, our negative mind states, they're something that very much, they get their power from us. They get their power from the way that we always habitually respond to them, the way that we become overwhelmed by them. When we start to learn how to go against them, we can come to a place where they start to lose their power over us. And it's a process that we're cultivating in meditation. So sometimes we might have good meditations, sometimes we might have very good experiences in meditation, and we might be able to temporarily overcome our defilements and seemingly go beyond our negative states of mind and experience great happiness. But for a long time, the experience is that the mind tends to fall back. When we come out of that state, then our defilements come back, and it is very much like a war against our defilements, where we have many different battles, and sometimes we have a clear victory in a particular battle, and we're able to really overcome our defilements. But then the next day, our defilements might re-arise stronger than ever, and it can be quite surprising to be knocked off balance again. But this process is continuing to put forth the same causes and conditions that we found have worked in the past, and patiently learning how to be present with whatever defilements continue to arise. So another simile that I very much like for the practice of meditation is a simile that a lot of the senior monks will use, and it's this simile of starting a fire. And so when one starts a fire, then especially if one is doing it in kind of the ancient way of before lighters and matches, having to first create a spark by rubbing two surfaces together, rubbing two pieces of wood together, or two rocks together in a particular way in which we rub them together for so long that they create an incredible amount of friction and heat, and that heat then starts to burst into sparks, and then using those sparks to build a fire. The goal of that that exercise is to end up with a very large fire that you can warm yourself with. But in the beginning, you have to start from the place of no fire, and a place of darkness. And for people who haven't made fires before, and particularly if we haven't done it in the ancient way, it would probably be almost impossible for us to even really get a fire going if we hadn't been taught by someone, if we hadn't really studied how to do that and put forth a lot of effort in that practice. Somebody who was very skilled could go through the process and make a large fire probably quite quickly, but someone who had never done it before, it would probably be impossible for them. And just the first step of creating sparks, is something that's incredibly difficult to do. And if we are able to create sparks, then you have to have these sparks land in some kind of fuel like dry grass, and you have to know how to build it in such a way that the sparks will ignite that grass, and then you have to be able to protect the sparks, the embers, and blowing on the sparks to create a small flame, and then protecting it so that the flame doesn't get blown out, and then adding more fuel, sticks, a small brush to increase the size of the fire. And in that whole process, if we make really any kind of mistake, we have to kind of start over again. And it's really a great simile for the practice of meditation, because the goal of meditation is to experience great states of happiness and peace. But in the beginning, we have to start by just trying to create any kind of happiness, any kind of ease in the mind. And in the same way that the large fire, it comes from a very small fire, it comes from a very small spark. In the same way, the great states of peace and meditation, which are like very big bonfires, they come from tiny little sparks in the mind. And the sparks, the Buddha spoke about the rapture and the joy that can arise in meditation, as the mind starts to become settled and one-pointed. The natural result is these qualities of piti, rapture, and sukha, bliss or happiness, joy. This experience of rapture and having all of the hairs stand on end on the body, and having waves of energy pass through the body is something that really everyone has experienced. Even in the world, sometimes listening to music, we can have experiences of rapture, but this is something that is a natural result of the mind as we start to come to a place of balance, come to a place of ease. We start to learn how to temporarily overcome the defilements. And these experiences of joy and meditation, rapture and joy and happiness, are like the sparks that start to start to arise in the mind. And in the beginning, for most of us, maybe we spend months or years, just trying to learn how do we create these sparks, in the same way that somebody would spend a very long time trying to learn how to start a fire by rubbing these sticks together, especially if no one had really shown them. They would have to spend a very, very long time and probably experience a lot of frustration before they ever finally were able to create any sparks. But at that point, the sparks that they would create, would probably just quickly go out, and they would then have to learn how do you allow that spark to ignite some kind of grass, and then how do you build it up from there. So this is very much the same with our practice of meditation. In the beginning, we're just trying to learn how do we create any happiness in the mind, and that's something that can take us many, many years. It's something that most meditators, we can spend a really long time just trying to learn where does happiness come from in the mind. How can I access it? It's something that can be incredibly frustrating, just like the person trying to start the fire. We can spend many years, even as monks, devoting ourselves to meditation every day. We can spend many years and sometimes not really find any happiness. But if we don't give up and we continue to put forth the right effort, and we always continue to learn, from our mistakes, and learn when things go well, and learn from our successes as well, eventually we come to a point where we start to learn how to create some kind of happiness in the mind. But in the beginning, it maybe is just very small amounts of happiness. And then our practice is very much in learning how to develop those states of happiness, and learning how to allow them to grow. And if we continue to put forth the right effort, and we continue to learn from our mistakes, then we will, eventually come to a place where we can build the fire that we would like to in the mind. Come to a place where we can experience the states of happiness that we've read about or that we've heard about. It is definitely something which is possible for all of us, even if we feel like we're hopeless. I think I know for myself, and I imagine probably most meditators have probably spent a lot of time, maybe for years, feeling quite hopeless and feeling like they can't really meditate, or they can't really experience the states of real happiness. But it's very much something that we all have the potential to experience. We all have, in the same way we could all learn how to light a fire. It could be incredibly difficult. Some of us would maybe be naturally more skilled at it. We might pick it up faster. Other people might really struggle with it, but we all definitely have the potential, the ability to develop these states of mind. But there is a whole process that leads to the states of mind. And if we spend a retreat like this, we can maybe spend a whole week really struggling with negative states of mind, and especially if we don't experience any happiness, it can almost feel like a waste of time. Maybe we kind of can feel quite frustrated and think that maybe we should have just done something else with our time. But in the same way that somebody who spends a lot of time rubbing these sticks together, even if they don't make any sparks with that, they're learning through that. Whatever amount of time they put into it, there's something that they've learned there. And if they don't give up, they eventually they will come to a place where they've learned enough to be able to accomplish what they want to accomplish. So these are just a few thoughts on meditation, and having reached about the middle point of our retreat, then we still have a few days left. So I just very much want to wish everyone the best for the last period of retreat, and very much hope that we're all able to experience the happiness that we're seeking in our meditation. So offer that for reflection.